All right, so welcome everybody. Today we're going to be focusing with three farmers that I admire a whole lot, partly for the incredible work they're doing on the land, but especially today for the work that they're doing in their communities as well. And that'll be the focus of our discussion. So this is part of the panel series that we do here with Climate Farmers to not only answer questions that come up in the community that we host, but also explore topics that are at the highest end of priorities of the farmers that we're discussing with, and that help to open up the scope of what regeneration means, not just in the land, but also with the people and in the businesses that help to make them run. So with that out of the way, let's go through some introductions. So I'll give it to each one of you to tell me a little bit about yourself and the farm and where you're at. Maybe we can start with Anne.
Yes, very glad to be here. Yeah, what shall I tell about myself? Like I'm a new entry farmer, so I come into farming from a rather surprising angle. My fascination has been a nature-culture divide while doing my studies. I have a big love for art. I'm a bird watcher. And actually, the first thing I wanted to be in my life was a farmer. I was 5, 6 years old when I thought about farming. I expressed it at primary school that I wanted to be a farmer, and I got a lot of negative feedback. So that taught me a lot about how society looks at farming. So then I lost it for a long time. I've been a curator. I've been doing projects, rights of nature related projects, founded the Embassy of the North Sea. And then I met a love of my life, a Spanish biologist, Ricardo Caramateo. And together we found out that the most beautiful thing to do in our lives was to farm regeneratively, inspired by some pioneers in Europe. And then we started our first farm. That was like 7 years ago. And it was a 5-hectare small urban farm. And currently, since 1.5 years, we moved to a bigger farm, a community farm. I think we will talk a lot more about that, but 45 hectares in the east of the Netherlands. It's a mixed farm with a lot of different business lines. We have 9 business lines, 4 farming lines that are fruit orchard, tree nursery. We have a garden and some arable plots and animals. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mateo, can you tell us about your operation and how you got into the farm?
Well, everything started when I was born. Since very young age, I never liked institutions and anything connected to behaviors, formal behaviors and institutional behaviors. So I think the result of being a farmer, I think it was just the consequence of that. So I've been all my life loving nature, ecology in all its manifestations. And I started the agricultural high school at 14 years old. And we had a farm at the high school. So it was a beautiful experience. It was a 5 years experience. And then after that, I travel by bicycle all around Europe, moving from one farm to another and working different projects, following all sorts of courses connected to agroecology, regenerative agriculture that I liked, or following those people I was reading the book of. And then I came back to Italy, I think around 13 years ago, where I started a farm with some friends on Lake Garda. And then during a course, I met Paula, also the love of my life. And she was just choosing a land to buy because she wanted to start a farm too. And then I moved from one lake to another. So now we are at Lake Iseo. And basically we started as a couple, as a family with our kids. And since the beginning, we wanted to create more of a farming ecosystem rather than a family farm. We never wanted to work with employees. So since the beginning, we opened the farm to people that wanted to become steward of the same piece of land and take their own responsibilities and risks together with us, of course, to manage what we are running today, which is Easy the Farm.
Thank you so much, Mateo. And Julia, tell us about your place.
Okay, so me, I also don't come from this field because I was working for many years as a professional photographer. And then like 10 years ago, I was doing an artist residency in the south of Spain, and it was in the countryside. And there was like a very big permaculture garden. And that's where I started to be more in touch with agriculture. And I really fell in love with permaculture. And then I was living in Berlin for work, and I was missing gardening a lot. So I started working as a urban farmer and also designing community gardens there with an organization that it's called City Plot. And then from there, I took my PDC, and that's where I met my colleagues, Ricard and Anna. And they were starting to set up a farm in Catalonia, where I live and where I come from. And so they invited me to join the project, and we started this farm as a cooperative in the north of Barcelona, the foothills of the Pyrenees. And right now we are 6 partners, and we have also 2 children. And so there's part of the team who are family related and others that are not. And the nice thing is that we all come from very different backgrounds. Some of us come from other fields, but for example, Ricard and Anna is a biologist. Ricard has always wanted to be a farmer. So it's nice because we can combine many of our different skills in the things we do. And so in the farm, we have the animals, we have cows and sheep. We also have the fruit trees, and we have a market garden. And besides that, we also have a bookshop in the capital city of the region, in Ripoll. And we do a lot of inter-cooperation projects, and also a lot of, how do you say, divulgación, like
dissemination of information.
our experience in the regenerative world with other people and other farmers. So yes, that's it.
And all of you said that as if that was like a small endeavor to be doing. It's really impressive just how far you stretch yourself in order to include the communities around you. Now, I want to go a little deeper with you, Julia, because, well, you're the farm that I know best. You're about an hour north of me, and I've had the good fortune of visiting you a couple of times. We even hosted our last Spanish community event at your guys' farm. Now, tell me a bit about how this came together, because I know there were years of preparation in getting the structure of your cooperative working before you actually started any farming.
Yes, we spent the first 2 years before 2020. We spent a couple of years just at the beginning. We were all living in different places. So we would gather every month to work on the project, and basically to get to know each other better and to lay out all the group work that we thought was essential before moving to the place. And we also spent all these 2 years doing all the planning and design of what we wanted to do. And then after these 2 years, we finally got this farm, and we started there. But there had been this work before, and very focused on the group and the relationships between us, the dynamics, all that. And for that, we had the facilitate, like a special organization that works on facilitation for groups. So they had a program for us, and they were like meeting with us every month to go through their program. And we also work with another co-op that was helping us to design the project, really taking into account a regenerative way of thinking. So it was also very helpful to think about our mission, our vision, and how we wanted to develop the project.
All right, I want to circle back around now to Anne. So you recently, in just the last couple of years, switched from your original farming location to the new place. And I've really enjoyed watching that transition and hearing from behind the scenes all of these things that you have overcome in order to make that happen. Tell me about this new configuration, because you have more partners and more stakeholders on this farm. So doing it as a community endeavor was sort of baked into the process from the beginning. How has that come together, and how has that blossomed into what you have now?
Yeah, that's certainly the case. One thing I wouldn't advise to move farms, because it's not something you want to do necessarily. But yeah, so this farm has been set up as a community farm from the very beginning. So the farm is a landland farm, and that's a cooperative model. And I was also part of the beginning of setting up the landland model and advising on how that could be done. And basically, it can exist because there is one rich entrepreneur that earned way too much money in the payroll industry in Rotterdam, and he put 10 million euros that he got out of a company in a foundation to start regenerative community farms in the Netherlands. And it works in the way that the Lenteland Foundation pre-finances a farm, then a local corporation is put into place, and that's the corporation that owns the buildings and the grounds of the farm. And ownership within the model is split. So there's juridical ownership, there is economic ownership, and there's creative ownership. Farmers can apply to a Lenteland farm with a business model, and then they can get for their lifetime the creative ownership of the place, which means that you make the operational decisions and you farm on the ground, basically, and you make a plan for that. And the juridical ownership is with the Lenteland Foundation that ensures that it will be regenerative community farms also over several generations, so protects basically the core mission and vision juridically. And the economic ownership, that is part of the community because everybody can share or everybody can buy shares of the farm, become co-owners of the farm. And with that, the farm is sort of lifted out of the speculative markets because it becomes a commons in a way. So it's a marriage, you could say, between commons and regeneration. And by having profitable business lines on one side, which is our responsibility as entrepreneurs in this place, plus having people buying shares of the farm so we can lift ground and buildings out of the speculative market, we can repay a debt that is actually quite patient capital, which is what you need for regeneration, back to the Lenteland Foundation. And with that money, they can pre-finance another farm.
Fascinating. And so with this configuration, how has that allowed you to participate more fully with all of the people that are involved in it?
Yes, so I think if you start with the mindset that it's going to be a community-owned farm and it's not your ownership, like there's no private ownership in our model, it leads you to a very different way, I think, of setting up a farm organization as well. So the co-owners that we have, and I'm super grateful for them, I noticed they're not only in there because they want a financial return, but they're very engaged in many different ways. So they really feel part of the farm. Of course, this also takes a lot of work because it's not about selling certificates, it's about having relationships with people. And currently we're like 1.5 years in. We have now for more than 800K in co-owners. So that's around a community of 200 people. So it's also a lot of community management is part of the work. But what you get in return, I think, is real gold. These are networks, these are engaged people, these are your best critics, I would say. So they're supportive, but they're also very critical. And I think that's really valuable. And the beautiful thing is that it connects so many different people also to the place. So you have we have our local conventional neighbors. Some of them are also co-owners. Some of them are also having our veggie box. So that's really nice. So you see a connection over there. But you see that the network is local, is national, and European. And these 3 levels also meet each other in this community and at the farm. And I think that's super beautiful because they can learn a lot. We can learn a lot from each other in a way. So that's very valuable, and it makes the place very, very live. It makes the place come alive in many different ways. And I think the beautiful thing is that everybody has a connection to either us as farmers, to the place that we're in, because some people become a co-owner because their mother lived in Lochem, which is a nearby town, and it reminds them of their childhood. Other people live now in the UK, but their grandparents, they had a factory in actually mining some kind of mineral in this region, and they want to do something back in that region. So you have very different reasons why people are just fully into regeneration and they love what we do. So you have very different reasons, but it's all a connected relational reason to invest. So money becomes sort of loaded also with meaning And that is also something you feel in the place. And I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
I love that. I love the focus on relationship there, because that really is a difference between having mostly a public-facing farm that just tries to sell its goods and one that engages in a deeper way and builds relationships with those people in their community to have a reciprocal thing that isn't just transaction of giving goods, getting money and such. Now, Matteo, I know you think about this a lot for your place as well. You talked about just a second ago wanting to have collaborators and not employees. Tell me how you've set up the structure of your farm to incentivize engagement and get people involved with your efforts.
So if my connection drops, I will re-enter. But I don't know what is going on with the Wi-Fi. I'm in Brussels, so I can't control it. So basically, being an anti-institutional person, what we did basically, it was very, very, how to say, very natural. I mean, we had lots of people passing by the farm, volunteering, internships, people that were interested in what we were doing. And so we had the chance to be sort of connected with over 200 people in the past years that live with us. And the way we basically relate ourselves with the people that come to help us in the farm is from the beginning is we don't create a distance. So basically everybody is how to say, it should be open to, I mean, we are open to critics, we are open to suggestions, to advising, and also we like to share the knowledge and experiences of everybody, not counting just on what is our experience. So little by little, we had few people staying for a few years, and we set up a system that now we became a company from a simple family farm, and we are 5 people in the company. Everybody is responsible of a certain area, but many more people are gravitating around the farm. And ideally, because of all the enterprises, agriculture and non-agriculture, but related also to landscape and farming that we have created and we are creating, there is room for a lot of people. Our idea was to basically to prove to our neighbors and to the system that you can live out of farming. And especially the farm that we are managing now was managed by one person part-time, maybe 3 months a year. And now we are more than 5 people, more than full-time the whole year around. And there is more room already to have other people joining. Basically, what we like to do is to stack function, is to verticalize, is to stratify all the services and the production that the farm can provide, and interconnecting them in such a way that, of course, energy, resources, machineries, processes are shared between the whole community. At the same time, what we share completely is the economy. So it doesn't matter if I go to do a consultancy or we have a kindergarten in the farm with Antonella, or we sell mushrooms or vegetables. All the economy goes into how you say is a community economy. So basically, we pay off all the expenses, the investments, and so on, and then we divide equally between everybody, without looking if someone has been producing more money than someone else. For example, for us, the kindergarten is producing more than money. Of course, is producing money, but at the same time, is the priority is culture, is having children that learn from their super young age how to be stewards of the land. And so it's okay if it's not as efficient as it should be from a financial point of view, economical point of view, because there are other activities which are supporting it. But we believe that children is the most important thing for the future. So basically, yeah, I've summarized very, very much what we are doing. It has been a huge effort from a social point of view, of first working with us, with individuals, and trying to, how do you say, to smooth our our steep angles on those aspects of sharing with someone else the work, decisions, risks, and so on. So first you have to work with yourself, especially when either me and Paola, my partner, we are not really community people. I mean, I've been living in many communities and I still don't want to create a community. The community is the consequence of rehabilitating the landscape and sharing resources, spaces, and a common objective. So we didn't start the farm thinking we want to have a community. Is the landscape that we are regenerating and more abundance year by year is produced by the farm, that abundance needs to be managed. Of course, it's not that I don't like the people I'm living with, and no, not really living, but I'm sharing my work, money, and so on. But is to stress the point of the difference between wanting to create a community and the community is born because there is a need of it. So is what I call is more a functional structuring of a community.
That is really interesting, especially because it runs in contrast to how Julia and her cooperative set theirs up, where they started with the intention of community and put years of organization and structures into that. And yours is the opposite way around. You started with the farm and the community emerged from the activities. It just goes to show that this can come about in many different ways. Now, going back to Julia, I want to start around here where we talk about some of the realities that set in when you're doing this, right? I know all of you will have stories to share of road bumps and learnings that have happened in this journey. Julia, can you impart some experience to us about some things that you learned in the process that maybe you would do different or would advise a different way?
Well, first of all, thank you to Anne and Mateo. This was very interesting. I was also thinking, and maybe I go a bit off topic, but also we don't own the land, we rent it. And the owner is one of our partners in the community. So that's also a complicated situation, I would say, and that it requires a lot of work and conversations and thinking about it. And I think in our specific case, it's challenging. It's challenging to have like members who are family, members who are not, and also it's challenging the fact that we live all together, so we don't have like separate living units, but we all share the same space, the same kitchen, the same living room. We only have our own rooms, but the rest of the space is shared, and I think that's quite challenging. And actually right now, because we always had the idea that in the future, once the business was more stable, we would try to invest money in having like separate unities, but we're not there yet. But we are starting to see the urgency of that, because we all have like different lives. And we all have different needs. And I think if we would start again, I would consider that from the beginning, because it's really hardcore to share everything. Like the living, the work, I think it's a lot. So maybe it's not necessary to do it all at once. So this is something that I think I would definitely do different. I would, if that was possible. And some of the challenges we have now, it's also this, I don't know, I found very interesting all what Anne was explaining, because I didn't know about your farm. And I mean, we are already realizing that even 6 people is not enough to run like the project that we have. So we will need more people. And we also have a lot of volunteers passing by and staying with us for months, and all these relationships that we've created all these years. But we also starting to think, how are we going to do that? You know, how are we going to open up this project to other members who can come in, thinking about different possibilities for the type of membership, of ownerships that are possible. So this is also something that is happening right now in our project, that we're starting to think about all this. And I don't know, I think the fact that we, like, for us, it's very important to keep on working on the group work. So we still do group work with a facilitator, and we do it every 3 months, more or less, besides the meetings, like we have weekly meetings to see how everyone's doing in a more like emotional dimension. And I think this is very important to keep doing this work if you want to be in a community, and also the working on your own issues, obviously, but also dealing with all the tensions and problems that keep arising. Well, they're not really problems, more like tensions and difficulties that come up from the fact of wanting to do a community project and not like a single project or something. So yes, I think that's it.
That is very valuable. I can definitely vouch for the need for personal space. It was something that was missing in my previous community farm effort in Guatemala, and it contributed to some tensions that caused the thing to fall apart. So I definitely understand how that can be essential. And can you give us some insights from your 2 different farms that you have run and what you've learned in both of those processes?
Yes, yeah. I think perhaps the most, thinking also about the time, the most interesting one is this last farm I've been working on, because it's a lot more complex, I would say. But I totally agree with Julia about the importance of social design is just as important as proper farm design, because otherwise things can become unnecessarily tense. 2 examples that we had in setting up this farm was, we also have a big team. And also people are living here as well. So that's also part of the social fabric of the farm. And we had a very difficult move in timing from one farm to the other farm. So we had to move our farm in February, March, which is not a nice moment to move a farm because you're already way too late for a season. So we had 1 year where we were just building. We were building market gardens, we were building polytunnels, we were building structures. We all moved from different contexts, and we didn't have time, to reflect, to sit down, and to do the organizational work that needed to be done. And that's something now we're catching up on that. And one of the things that gives us a lot of clarity is that we asked everybody in the team to write a holistic context. So you basically get clarity in what kind of world do I want to live, what kind of life would I like to lead, and what am I committed to do to get there. So it's like a decision-making framework that you put on paper, and everybody gets a statement of purpose that rolls out of that. And with that clarity, we also asked everybody to fill in like a simple matrix in which they say, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I know, and this is what I love, but also this is what I cannot do, this is what I don't know, and this is what I dislike. So we had everybody fill those in as well. And now we're in the process of writing a holistic context together for the farm. So that's like on another level, which takes a lot of time because it goes as fast as the slowest, person you have to take along. And we're also very busy with all kinds of other stuff. But it really helps because then we will have one sort of governance document for the whole farm. And what also comes out of that, and that group and individual work, is that we are setting up now one Excel in which everybody has clarity on their tasks. So until the task defined, like what is the work that you do and why, because it becomes clear out of the previous work we done, holistic context, and the matrices on why a certain person should do a job and have the responsibility for that and what that means. And I think this really helps us to reduce the noise that is always going to be there in a very complex farm organization, because it creates a lot of clarity. So we are now at the stage where we have like this Excel with all the tasks, and then we have sort of marked in colors where the noise is, because we asked everybody to fill in the tasks and who is main responsible and who is the backup of a task. And then if several people fill in the same thing, oh, there's noise. So these 3 people should sit together, figure it out, and split the tasks, and then you get the clarity. And that's the work we're doing now. And yeah, of course, in a dreamt up situation, you would do this all up front, but you also figure things out while you're doing it. So what actually the task should be that really befits you. And yeah, and also there is always a context of time and space and challenges and moments, and that just changes the path of how you can approach things. But that is something I can really advise. Just if you do one thing, write a holistic context and get it clarity for yourself and for everybody you're working with within that community of a farm. And and that's, I think, slowly but surely, we're still building a lot, but that gives some kind of peace. You also feel people can land better if that clarity is there. That helps a lot also with getting the work done in a joyful way.
I'm so glad to hear that the holistic context process has been so useful for you, as I've heard that from many other people, and it's a process that I advocate for and work a lot with my clients too. Now, Mateo, in this evolution of your community, in order to manage the abundance and the responsibilities that have come up from your farm's growth, give us some insights into some of your main learnings and challenges that you've overcome that you could advise us on.
On the community level, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We didn't. I would say that in this past 10 years, we didn't really change much of the structure, and our objectives and vision hasn't really changed a lot. What it changed has been, again, the individual work is how much you can stretch with your behaviors until where you can compromise yourself for a higher purpose, which is the community purpose or the ecological purpose. And I think much of it lays behind not giving us too much importance as individuals and sort of putting into the social ecosystem design ecological principles rather than social principles. That's because my background, at least I speak for myself, is not social, has been ecological and scientific all the time. So I don't have that formal background, but I can use my senses. Speaking about ecological capacity, I can use my senses. I can see with my eyes if a person is in tension. I can hear the voice, being the words or the vibration of the voice. So I think it's a matter of becoming more human. And for sure, I know that the approach that Anne was saying now, that would be very helpful for us to speed up certain processes. At the same time, we are a little bit Italians, so we have the recipe, but we always change it every time. And every single person adds something new, unexpected. But the dish at the end, it comes out always good to eat. Sometimes you have to remove a little bit of a burnt or an uncooked part, but still, the final result is good, and is not a matter that we judge and we give us our own feedbacks, but the people that come through the farm, they are basically the elements, the traffic lights that allow us to understand how we are manifesting as a community. So is really taking everything from an ecological perspective. Understanding, first of all, is very important, which is connected to the holistic context and what Anne was saying. What is your role in this ecosystem? What are you made for? Do you really want to do something you are not made for? If yes, are you able to use extra energy for a certain period to achieve results that normally they're not really, that they should have been compatible with you? So it's a sort of a trip, a path between brambles and very soft and beautiful plants, and then again something spiky and so on. And the interesting thing is that we are getting to a point where, of course, we have lots of tensions. Me and my partner, we are very hard. We have a very thick skull, okay, and we needed a lot of time to make it thinner and thinner and thinner. So the interesting thing is that one of the elements that I think it worked the most during meetings or helping us to tell something to someone in order to have a better system for all of us is to make things, I say, with irony, with fun, okay, to make fun of serious things, or just let the people manifest themselves and then realizing, okay, there are bigger problems to think of. And this doesn't mean not giving importance to what people are saying. Is really listening to all of us, at the same time trying to understand how much importance to give to every single problem that raises to the community. So it's a slower path. And I finish by saying, we don't want to create the best social ecosystem for us. We have kids. We have many. We have some kids in the farm. We have kids at the kindergarten. So we are looking at a long-term succession of the social ecosystem, and we are open also to leave, let's say, certain unnecessary and non-efficient either behaviors or experiences in order to experience everything that will allow us to have stronger foundations. I really see that we went through quite hard times sometimes, but we are strong. We didn't leave them as traumas. They are material for stronger and wider foundations.
Fantastic insights there. Now that we've gone through some of the difficulties and the things that you've overcome, I'd love to learn about the activities or the investments or the things that you've put an effort into that have gotten the biggest result or feedback from your community. Now, Julie, I know that you have run newsletters, you've done all kinds of events in your local town. What things that you have organized as a farm have brought in the biggest return of goodwill or participation from the community that you're a part of?
So difficult to answer in just like one thing, because
Well, you can give us an overview if it was a combination of a few.
I think it's all happening with a combination of different things. There's not like one thing that has been like, it's more like adding, no, keep working on it and keep doing stuff, and at the end, every year you see that it's getting bigger. So yes, no, we have this open farm day at the farm that we organize every year, and it started very small with just the family coming, and now there's like around 150 people coming from around, and as well as the family. And we do a lot of, like, we do a farm tour, but we also do concerts, we read poetry, we do dance, theater. Anyway, so this is a big day for us, and it has proven to be like a very nice way to enlarge like our impact, or yes, the relationships with the local community. Also, yes, we do a lot of like printed work, like newsletters and stuff like that we give to our clients. So, and in there we explain what's happening in the farm and our vision. And I think that also has helped. But then also, I don't know, like all the intercooperation projects that we do, they have different levels. So we have like, things like today, meeting with climate farmers, but then we do have a lot of interaction with the local things that are happening. So there's, for example, we just started now, like a few months ago, the Association of Local Farmers, and these farmers are not doing regenerative, they're conventional cow farmers. But for example, it's been really interesting to become part of that association and to start, like getting it from the inside, and starting to put things on the table regarding our vision of how we farm, and to have like an impact on all these people who are working very different from how we do it. That has also been very interesting, like to be part of all these like local initiatives where we see that we can have an impact, even if they're not aligned with our vision or the way we do things. And then, yes, of course, we do a lot of, farm visits with schools. We also participate in some of the events that are organized in our village, where we bring food so that people can try it. We do a lot of workshops in collaboration with other organizations, also very local. And then, of course, having the bookshop which is only 30 kilometers away in the main city of the region, has also been very helpful because people get to know us through the bookshop also, and we organize a lot of events there as well, like book readings, concerts, yes, or like all like cultural stuff. But we've been working a lot in articulating the cultural scene of the region, and this has brought a lot of impact in that field, but also connected to the farm. We also use the bookshop as a how do you say, like a picking up point for the products that we sell, so clients can go and pick it up there. So yes, I don't know if I'm missing anything. Well, and then yes, also selling at the local market, a little bit of everything. I think everything has helped to start building that relationship with the local community. Also, our kids go to the school there in the town, and that also makes that you start building a lot of relationships with other parents. Well, yeah, a little bit of everything, I think.
Yeah, it sounds to me from all of that that each one of those efforts brings in a different aspect of the community, right? The participation in the schools, the participation in the Farmers Association, having a presence in town, all of those things would cover ground in the community that any one individual thing wouldn't cover. And the consistency and the fact that you keep trying new things, and now you've been at it for a number of years, is probably contributed to the place that you find yourself at. So, Anne, to you, what sort of activities and investments in time and effort have really resulted in the best results for you?
Well, I think it fits a bit what Julia says and what you were just describing. Like we see, like I think the most beautiful thing that can come out of our farm is that people decide themselves to work with regeneration, do something with it, like are activated in their own way, in the way they should be activated because they're all different people. So we have like a very low entry way of getting in touch with regenerative farming, for example, or so we have community dinners for a low fee where people can share a meal at our farm. We have a campsite where people can stay. So we have all kinds of people staying in the campsite. We have a farm shop. We have all kinds of activities throughout the whole year where a lot of different people come to the farm. So we also have some primary school children. We had the top of the police, very interesting, who wants to learn what a regenerative organization was. We have farmers coming over. So impact investors, like really different groups of people. And we give courses, Ricardo and me. So we're with 4 entrepreneurial farmers now. And we also still give courses. And that's also to mainly to activate people to work themselves with regeneration in their own context or in their own way, or start their own farm or restaurant or whatever. And one of my favorite programs right now is actually more of a non-profit project because our farm is for profit. But it's, as I see it, regenerative farming for me personally is just a step in a longer, probably multi-generational way of us reconnecting ourselves to land and community again in Europe in the 21st century. So you could call that becoming indigenous again, although we're so far away from the average indigenous community that it's a long stretch. But so we actually set up a residency program that involves around that question. So how do we become indigenous again in Western Europe in the 21st century? What would it even look like? What would our institutions look like? What would our livelihoods look like? And we have, it's called ERF. So it's a Dutch translation for yard, farmyard. And it has 3 lines: eat, reconnect, farm. And the eat part is for chefs in residence. So they stay at the farm for 8 weeks. They figure out what it is to cook in touch with season and with themselves. And they get the time and space to just develop their own practice. So at the moment we have, for example, a really nice chef, Austrian chef coming in from Barcelona who wants to start her own restaurant. And another chef from Cyprus, young people who are really transforming food. They're making now crumbles from the acorns of the local trees here. And it's just the most delicious thing I ever ate. So it's fantastic. We have at the same time farmers in residence, so people who are already have some farming experience and will use this time to write a business plan, to come up with a new pathway of farming, or just to have the time and peace and meeting space to get inspired and to take their next steps. And at the same time, we have artists. So that's the reconnect part of ERF. So if each reconnect farm, and the reconnect part is the artist part, where we have talented young artists from Europe coming in who are working on this topic and help to reflect on our own process of regeneration in this place as well. So we had an amazing person with mixed indigenous background here as a first artist who set up an app in which you can actually save memories of place at the farm. So you can, now people who come to the campsite can ask for this app at the reception. They can have a walk over the farming, and they get all these layers of history and visitors of the farm and read the landscape in different ways. It's really beautiful. And we have another farm now that is an artist who's working on post-colonial cooking and works with the drainage of the landscape, which is a big thing in the Netherlands and which happened here also. And all these stories and all these connections become part of the farm. And I think help us to taking sort of a next step in how we reconnect ourselves again to the land.
That's lovely. I would love to learn more about each of those different activities. It's given me a lot of ideas. Matteo, same question to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Yeah, I switched on the computer because it was big troubles.
We got you good now.
Yeah. So as I said before, for sure the kindergarten with the families is the first thing I would say. And then our biggest problem is that we started on the farm without farm barns, structure houses. So we have been building everything from scratches. And we finally, we finished our house, at least for our family. And now we are going in the process of building or rebuilding the houses for the rest of the team, but also farm structures, roofs, and anything that allows you to do any activities not under the rain or the sun. We didn't have any of them. We nearly finished the first structures that we started to build a few years ago. But at the same time, we have been running farm tours since the first year, and hundreds and hundreds, like I would say, I could say over 1,000 people came to the farm to visit and see what we are doing, to get inspired and so on. We organized not a lot, but quite a bit of courses with international educators and not just, also Italians, also connected to EIT food programs. And we connected to the farm thanks to the social medias and various connections of various projects. We basically started a farmers association, Italian Farmers Association, which now reached over 500 farmers all around Italy, which is a beautiful community of exchange on WhatsApp, on different groups. We help each other to be better farmers and to survive to all the difficulties in from economical bureaucracy, agronomical or veterinary point of view. And this has been nice because is out of the farm, but is also thanks to the farm, because we managed to create different communities connected to our farm as well, because we always have been showing our experiments, researches, and ways to interpret ecology. And this, for many people, has been used as examples. And so from there, it's not just about, okay, a farmer started to do something similar or is inspired, but a whole community creates on the dynamics that many of the people observed in our place. And then we have a CSA, so a community supported agriculture, where basically I shouldn't call them customers, but the people that support us, they take the risks, some of the risks that we take. So I think that's the locally speaking is the strongest community impact that we have, which is amazing, and they are following and supporting us since nearly the beginning. So I believe that what is going to happen with the finishing of the farm structures, we'll be able to start a farm restaurant, a agri camping, and different activities related to these two spaces, which will allow us to organize events and gatherings and markets and so on that we haven't been able to organize up to now. So yeah, little by little, growing different levels of community.
That is beautiful. I'm truly impressed by all of the different endeavors and activities that all of you take on. And I have so many follow-up questions, but it's about time that I hand it over to our listeners. So before I hand it over to the Q&A portion, in case anybody has to leave, I want to say thank you for coming already. And if you are interested in being more involved in these conversations, please consider signing up for the Climate Farmers community if you are an active farmer anywhere in Europe. And if you are pursuing any definition of regeneration, we don't cut off by certain practices or certain, certifications that are out there. So it puts us into boxes instead of unifying us. We are here to help everyone achieve their unique vision of success for their farm. And we have, it's all for free to sign up. We have a lot of resources and love to connect you with other people in your region. We know that, as we've been discussing here, relationships are really at the core of regeneration. And so we welcome you to join us and to follow on this series of panels. So with that out of the way, if anyone has a question that they would like to ask, I would encourage you to go to the little react button at the bottom of your screen, the one that's got a heart on it, and raise your hand. It's easier for me to see you that way. And we'll talk to people in order that way. At the same time, if any of you participants have questions, feel free to ask them as well. Oh, we still have more people coming in. A lot of positive feedback in the chat. I'm trying to see if there are any other questions in here. I don't see one soon. I'm going to start pouring out with my own questions again. All right, well, until I see a hand, I would really love to know what aspect of culture and community is most motivating to each of you. Like, what is the part that you most enjoy or have fun with? Whoever wants to jump in on that. Because I know for me, like, dealing with the communication and the social aspect, it sometimes feels like work. Whereas getting together and doing projects together, or when there's an art project, or, getting together and actually accomplishing work is really motivating. What aspects of this are the most fun and engaging for each of you? Matteo, I can definitely see you as a kindergarten teacher. I would have loved to have you as my teacher in kindergarten.
Actually, all the kids are very scared of me. I'm the bad one in the farm. If someone has to tell them not to do something, normally it's me. No, it's I don't run the kindergarten. Antonella, she's the teacher. Sometimes we help. We do some activities. The idea is to get there. But now we are too busy as individuals to follow all other processes.
Well, I'd love to talk to you more about that in the future, because I used to work in before and after school programs and in summer camps with kids. And I'm really keen to integrate something with children's education, environmental education on the farm in the future. We're still a little ways away from looking at something like that, but I would love to hear more about your experience in a future conversation. All right, I'll hand it over to Stephen. Go ahead, bud.
Thanks, Oliver. As always, a fantastic job moderating. It's been wonderful to listen to the discussion today. My partner and I, we just bought his family farm here in Finland, and we're very much interested in establishing some type of community farm here. Hearing your journeys has been helpful, but of course, context is key. And I'm curious if there are any resources that inspired you in the foundation of your community farms. So different types of organizational models, different ways to engage the community in kind of co-creating what vision you wanted to create for your farms. That would be great to hear some of those inspirational resources, perhaps.
Who wants to go ahead and start with that one? Great question.
Yeah, I can start. I think one of the best things you can start with is sort of make like, sort of a research or a scan, or whatever you like to call it, of where you're actually landing. So like we spent quite some time just making a a historical report of the place, and also talking to the previous farmers, and just to get a sense of what kind of farm we're actually having. So because you don't start on a blank sheet, and that, I think, is something that goes wrong sometimes, with especially with new entry farmers. I think that you move into a place and I got this master plan, and which is not the way to go. I would not advise that. So actually we've done this kind of research, like also to see, oh yeah, like how's the landscape formed from the Ice Age until now. And our farm was actually founded as a farm to drain the swamp, because we were in a swamp. The name of the farm, Gagel Farm, is called after Mokbeurtel, which is a beautiful sweet gale. It's like a really nice smelling plant from which you could brew fantastic beers and soaps and all these kind of things. And it was called like that because it was a wet heather area full of Milica gale, full of this beautiful bog myrtle. But now we come here 150 years later, and there's no single plant left. So these stories that are part of the place, of the memory of the place, and that have made the farm into the farm it is now, and all those communities connected to it, not only humans, but also animals, plants, microbes throughout history. Yeah, that's your starting point. And I would definitely advise to put some effort and time into that, and you will find some surprising things. We even have stories from neighbors of people who were buried here, and I mean that's all part of the place, and it makes the place come alive, but it also gives you the real chance to ground in a place where you might not have been from. So that helps us a lot.
In our case, we have like different, like, because part of the members of the co-op were like the house where we have the farm. They used to go there as kids. So obviously the relationship with that place is very different from some of us who are not related at all to that place. So it's been interesting also to see like the difference between, you know, their sense of belonging there and what it's been for me, for example, that I've done a bit more of this work of understanding where I'm going, what's the story of this place, also spending a lot of time just around observing. We also spent the 2 years before moving there, we were already going there, so we spent also these 2 years just hanging out there and observing, walking around, not designing at all, just, you know, just seeing things and feeling things, and that was useful. And then I don't know if your question was also more about, for example, in terms of organizational, I think it was very interesting. There's a book called Reinventing Organizations by Frederic Laloux. That was one, like one very influential book to read, and it helped us to decide how we were going to organize ourselves. And then we chose a model that is a mix between sociocracy and holocracy. So we kind of investigated that and based our model on, inspired on that. And then also in the group work, it was very important. We use a lot process work, which was created by a man called Arnold Mindel. He has a very interesting book called Sitting in the Fire. I think in English it's called like that. And it has also been very helpful in terms of the group dynamics and the relationships between us. I think those two were also very useful at the beginning and inspiring.
Matteo, do you have some insights there as well?
Well, I would just add something not very formal. Basically, is still connected to the individual, and first of all, really try to do a nice deep work on yourself, on knowing what you want, what are the borders of the decisions, or the compromise that you can do in order to reach your vision and your objective. This is having clear ideas of what you want to do. It allows you to really space the solutions in an incredible way. And for me, one of the most enriching things that I've done in the past. First, it was traveling a lot by bicycle, lots of thinking, lots of looking, lots of relation with frustration and with love. And then what I've seen also from friends and colleagues that now are in the farm, Vipassana meditation, which is nothing really connected to farming, or maybe it is, but it allows you, is one of the techniques that allows you to really speak with yourself, speak with your expectations, speak with your aversion against what is happening. And this, I think, is the good start, the good substrate to grow healthy plants.
Fantastic. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands up, and so I think maybe we can even build on that. And I would love to know where you draw other inspirations from. Do you know of other farms that are really exceeding in their community connections and outreach? Is there a project or a reference that you have for something that you aspire to? Because you guys are kind of that for me. So I'm wondering who you look up to.
Can I start?
Yeah.
I mean, Julia and La Sala, they came to our farm a few years ago now to sort of exchange social dynamics and how they manage things on a social level and so on. So thanks to Massi, our friend and colleague, which he has been to La Sala some years ago, he organized the meeting, and I think it's still La Sala is a very beautiful example for us on how things can work, as well as Anne. I mean, we know Anne now since 2 years, and she has been, they have been inspiring us from and many different levels, especially the foundation. Thanks to them, we are now on the way to start an Italian foundation for land access. Of course, not so well structured, a little bit more messy, but still we are getting there. And so I think it's nice to look as close as we can, because in the same room there is always the all the ingredients to make a nice dish.
Thank you, Matteo. Yes, I feel a bit the same. Like, it's hard to point like this project or that project. I feel like we learn so much all the time from all the projects here, from the people who pass by. It's and even for us, I think each of us has like is inspired by different types of project. Because I don't know, if you ask my colleague, my partner Ricard, he would say like some farm related, much more focused on cattle, for example. And me, maybe I'm much more focused in a community that has, I don't know, 40, 50 people living, and they do a lot of group work, and that might be more inspiring for me. But I think I agree with Matteo that looking around and just even from like, I don't know, we do a lot of workshops for farms who are now transitioning, and we also learn a lot from these projects and from their ideas and their vision. So it's hard to point, like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I can add certainly that this is also one of the reasons why we started farming, is because there were other amazing people out there doing incredible things. So they were just either farming, regenerating whole landscapes, just also sometimes in not such a visible way, but just being brave enough within their community and context to make a difference and hold on to that. So that for me, that is really, really inspiring. And one of the things that I'm currently feel very inspired by is, I already referred to it a little bit, but I think there are a lot of indigenous people out there from which we can learn so much. And one of the books that really feels a bit like my new Bible is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. So it's a beautiful book in which, so Robin Wall Kimmerer is a Potawatomi mother. She's a bryologist. She's a professor in mosses. She knows everything about mosses, which is already fantastic. And I think she very beautifully describes that we need new kinds of stories. We need a new narrative to get the work done that this century needs. But she also shows that to really live those stories, we need a new kind of spirituality and connection to land, which is something that a lot of indigenous communities still have, but in a Western context is sometimes hard to find. And on the one hand, we need cutting edge science on the other hand. And one of the things that I really feel inspired by now is fungal science. So there's a lot going on in the mycelium of fungal scientists. So you have this community of SPAN, Protect the Underground networks with Julia Fucci and Merlin Sheldrake, who wrote this beautiful book, Entangled Life, about the amazing things that fungi do and how they are farming, how they are, like crossing all the boundaries you thought that was a boundary. And sort of also challenging our assumptions and all the categories that we built and the institutions that Matteo was referring to over the past years. So personally, I'm also super inspired by that. And I also learned to see that more and more in the landscape I'm living in, because I feel also more connected. So one of the things that I feel very inspired by is that I don't know, the longer I'm farming, the less I feel the need to measure anything, but to just be and to learn to read again or interact again with all those rhythms of life that we sort of lost. And that really inspires me that oh yeah, now the stone chat is back. And it must be half of May, or the tawny owl is calling, the chickens need to be closed. So this connection to rhythm and learning to notice again these rhythms and this sort of dance at the farm, that really feeds me. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Can I just
Stephen, go
add-
ahead again.
Sorry, can I just
Yeah, go ahead.
A very important thing is not to forget that even if our old neighbor, conventional Coca-Cola drinking and grumpy neighbor is there, is very different. The narrative is not regenerative, okay? It's not cool. But at the same time, the grumpy neighbor, every single year, is like a clock. He shows himself at the right moment with his scythe, cutting the grass. At the right moment of the year, they prepare the village festival. At the right moment, I mean, they give you a sense of, oh, look, maybe we are not what you're expecting to be a regenerative society, but we are there since 2000 years. We still have more or less the same traditions. We go on with this continuity and this capacity of holding on in spite of the world going and evolving towards technology, towards not having time to go out and sighting the grassland. So I think I studied at school, agricultural school, and I was the only student in my class that was not a farmer, and I was speaking about organic farming, and all the rest of the students were telling me, what are you saying? Come on, bullshit. But still, I appreciate a lot going to work to their farms and seeing like the really grounded culture that they were, without knowing, promoting all around. So I think not to make a division of we are good because we are regenerative, but we can teach them, look, maybe don't drink Coca-Cola or that produce. There are alternatives, but still the structure is there.
I think that's a very valuable insight to keep in mind. And I like to bring it up a lot too, because terminology often serves to divide us. And even if we are using it to try and promote something that we're passionate about, it often leaves people out. And I think back to one of the most impactful interviews that I did over the last couple of years was with a very outspoken conventional farmer actually in Canada, who had a blog sort of defending his position and talking about why he would never go organic. He didn't address regenerative very much, but at the same time, he spent a lot of time volunteering in the community. He was part of the volunteer firefighters of that area. Like, this guy was a real staple in his community. And if we put on the blinders and just see how someone is interacting with a landscape, not knowing the full context about where their priorities are at, how much he does for his family, what he's contributing to the local economy, like, if we are to be honest with the concept of regeneration, we really need to open up to all of the aspects that are part of that. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, Matteo. And with that said, I want to give back to Steven. You got another question, my man. Remind me to give you a co-hosting credit next time.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing the things that inspired you. And it's great to hear that you inspire each other. It makes me think that there needs to be some type of informal or formal network to connect you all and hopefully me. Yes, exactly. Maybe Climate Farmers is that network. But to your point, both Matteo and Oliver, my question was largely about community. And I wanted to ask if you have any experience or advice navigating intercultural community, both within the farm community that you have, as well as the wider community that you service?
Great question. Who wants to take that one first?
Well, yeah, I can say something about it. I think like the thing is we are all people. And I think that was also a little bit what Matteo was referring to just now. So it's connecting on a human level. And then you can, and of course you can then, like I also have neighbors that disagree on the practice that's like the practices on the ground that we're doing over here, or they have a different view on it. But at the same time, they are my neighbors and I want to be good neighbors and I want to be a good neighbor to them. So for me, it's about not being dogmatic in your views, trying at least not to be dogmatic in your views, and trying always to understand where somebody comes from, because everybody has their own context and history and times in which they grew up. And so to also have to be kind in that respect to the differences that are there, I think is crucial to build a community anyway. Is it then challenging sometimes? Yes, of course. It can be challenging sometimes. But I do think, yeah, that also without the friction, you don't get I know this might be a very Dutch proverb, but without the friction, you also don't get the glow, right? So it's part of it.
Anybody else want to contribute there?
I agree with Anne. The words that came to me also was like humble, like approaching people from this place of humbleness and looking for this connection to another human being. And then I also thought, just to add on to what Anne said, be consistent with what you're doing, because we also had, I don't know, one of the most beautiful relationships we have at the farm is with the farmer who was there before us. He was retiring when we moved in, and we decided we wanted to involve him in the whole process, and that he would keep helping us now. And this was a process that took a long time to work on that relationship, and now we have this amazing relationship with him. But he was very tough with us at the beginning and not believing at all what we were doing, and he still is very skeptical. But I think it's important to become to be, how we say, consistent with what you're doing, and just with the time, people around start seeing that you're serious about it. Also, because we were coming from, we were young, we were coming from the city. There was no way to earn our respect. The only way was to be humble and persistent with our commitment to our work. And I think that was also very helpful.
Matteo, do you have anything you want to add there?
No, by listening to Julian and I think I forgot the question.
Steven, you want to reiterate real quick?
Yeah, I can do. Matteo, the question was just if you have any advice or experience navigating interculturalness within your community and the wider community you service.
I'm not sure if I get the question, because what do you mean for intercultural?
Were you working with people that have come from different places or have different needs or perspectives?
Okay. Yeah. So I thought this. Basically, what is going to happen is we haven't been speaking about the local community. I think the best thing that has happened that opened the doors more than before, it was when Paula was pregnant for our children, and it changed a lot because a family without children, or some people that are coming from outside taking the land of the people of the village is not very well seen. So on the local level, we are working more and more to create connections. Whether Marcella and Antonella, they have been living for 9 years in England in a Campiel village, working with directly into farming, artisanal work, and many other things with the disabled people and living with them. So we will, when we'll have the structures, Marcella and Antonella would love to have daily activities with local associations that work and take care of different disabilities, as well as Maddie, another of the team, another woman from the team. She goes every week, a few times a week actually, to help in a communal garden where immigrants and other people that are from other countries, they sort of create community via gardening. So yeah, I don't know if the question was related to this. Yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps one thing that I thought about, like, I think what really helps is not try to be convincing, like not try to convince, but try to be convincing yourself. So keep it with yourself. Like, this is what I do because this is what I believe in, because this makes my eyes twinkle, and not project up on another person or your neighbor or your whatever how they should be doing it, because that, in my experience, is really not helpful.
I would just add also going to the local parties and having fun also with the neighbors and the people in the village. We are lucky that our community is very diverse. So we have, like, within us, some of us are parents, so we don't go out that often, but some of us are much younger and want to go out. So we have very different lifestyles that helps us to connect with different types of people in the village. So yes, doing activities that are happening there and getting involved.
Fantastic. Well, I am really impressed with just how broad of a discussion this ended up being, with a lot of personal insights and philosophy around it. I really learned a lot from this. And if anybody else would like to follow this series of panels, we have them coming out each month, and all of the recordings are on our YouTube channel at Climate Farmers, and these get published later on the Regenerative Skills podcast as well. So we'll wrap that up for today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Thanks.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Ciao.